Welcome to Celebration Conversations. I'm your host, Sarah Taylor Young. Join me each week as I talk to singer-songwriters, artists, and friends about how they have turned their pain into purpose. Here at Celebration Conversations, it is my hope that you find motivation and celebration in your own journey. Let's get to it. Okay, today I am with Mr. AJ Rags. How are you doing today, AJ?
I'm doing great, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about yourself. You're a singer-songwriter, right?
I'm a singer-songwriter, artist-writer from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am 26 years old. I actually studied opera, but now I'm trying to be a pop singer. And I'm working with some pretty cool people like yourself in Nashville to try to help make that dream a reality.
Yeah. So tell me how you got started with singing and performing.
So you probably have to go back to when I was 8 years old, back in my day. No, my I was very blessed to have a family who liked all different kinds of music. So my dad, of course, I grew up on like the oldies. Frank Sinatra was a big one for me. The Beatles were also a big one for me. And I think a big part of the influence for my love of music was actually my two grandfathers. So my dad's father and my mom's father. They used to, I still have a very vivid memory of this. They would always call me, I was probably like 8 years old. And on the old speaker phones where the buttons were like that big.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Old speakerphone versus like the smartphone now. And they would sing to me certain like little nursery rhyme songs and things that I think it just like helped grow a love of music in me. And honestly, I don't think I've ever seen myself doing anything else but music of some sort. I've always wanted to be a famous pop star is the dream, of course. The Beatles were huge for me growing up too. I used to sing them all the time. And I still do actually. But yeah, I think it's just because, the people that God put in my life had a great love of music and it kind of like they fostered it in me. And I feel so happy whenever I'm doing music of any kind, whether it's songwriting or playing piano or guitar or just singing a tune that's stuck in my head, which happens a lot.
Yeah. There's something that happens with the brain. Like, I don't know about you, but I get calm when there's music going on. Well, depends on the genre, but yeah, I get very calm. So how did you get into songwriting? When did you really start doing that?
So I had probably back in 2018 was when I released my first EP, and that had been about 8 years in the making, believe it or not.
Wow.
It was only 4 songs, but because I was so busy with high school and college and all the extracurricular stuff that I did, I never really had time to focus that much on it. So it just
Wait a
just
minute.
took a very long time.
You were in high school when this happened?
High school when I first started working on it.
Okay. That's still really big though. Like, no wonder you didn't have time.
Well, I first time I had ever written a song, I guess it was my freshman year in high school. It might have been a little earlier than that. First time I've written a song that I've ever shared with anyone.
Okay.
Was my freshman year in high school. I did this project to benefit the food bank in Pittsburgh and just put on a concert for it. And I wrote this song called When I'm Singing. And it is the most awesome song you'll ever hear. Not really. But no, it was very cute for where I was. But when I think it was ninth grade. When I was in ninth grade, I had this assignment in English class. And it was to write a poem, I think, some kind of a poem based on like whoever we were reading at the time. I can't remember who. But I did note at the time, this poem turned into the first song that's on my EP that I eventually released 8 years later.
Wow.
So that's when I think I started songwriting. Now, when I did it seriously was probably around 2017. I connected to Cherise Voltore, Global Songwriters Connection, through who you know very well.
Yes,
Uh,
I love Cherie.
she's the greatest. I connected to her through Riley Roth. I don't know if you know that name. She's my dad, being a stage dad, the best stage dad that he is constantly like networking for me on Facebook, and
Oh,
he is. So he was friends with Riley Gresham, and Gresham had posted that Riley just got a big publishing deal, and an artist development deal through, I think it was BMG and Busby's record label. And so my dad just reached out and said, "Hey, how did you guys do that?" And so she connected us to Cherie, and now I've been seriously songwriting probably for about 3 years. Um, yeah, and we actually have one that we're working on, you and I, which is cool.
yes, yes. I'm not afraid any. I remember you liked the growl part. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't wait. We're gonna finish.
Yes, yes. I'm excited. I'm so stoked. So tell me about your background and how you were trained as a vocalist. You said you were trained classically. I don't know about you, but the critique I get, because I was also trained
Oh yeah.
classically, is it's too operatic, or it's, so I just finished my work doing vocals on my album a couple of months ago, and my producer Brian, he was like, "It just sounds too much like Les Mis." And, so, do you find that it helps or hinders with pop music?
Yeah, so I've been blessed with some very, very good teachers in my life, and I honestly attribute my success to them. The teacher I had in college, his name is Daniel Teed, fantastic baritone at Carnegie Mellon University. He was very good at helping me bridge the gap between pop music and opera. So like I went in the first day, he asked me, "What do you want to do? Like, what are your dreams and whatnot?" And I told him, Carnegie Mellon, first off, is a very classically oriented program.
Right.
So normally nobody's going to Carnegie Mellon who wants to be a pop singer. Normally. Not
Right.
always, but usually. So I told him that I want to be a pop singer, and thankfully he did not ask me why I was there. He said, some teachers probably would have, but he just said, "Okay, that's a bit unusual, but it's my job to try to help you do that." So
Right.
he did a very good job, and that was one of my first teachers. So after my training at CMU, I did get a couple of comments saying that it felt like I was too legit sounding, too classical sounding, but it was never so much that I felt like I couldn't do pop music. You know what I'm saying? I decided to start venturing into trying a different teacher. So I actually had my boss, who she runs the studio where I teach. Can't think right now, sorry. She runs the studio where I teach, and she also is a voice teacher herself. But she teaches pop music. So I started working with her, and we started like finding the little differences between pop and opera. The biggest difference, I think, is that it's not as loud.
Yeah, right.
With
Yeah.
opera, it's like you don't have a microphone, so you project to the old lady with the hearing aid in the last row.
Right.
But with pop, you get to rely on the microphone. So that's probably the biggest difference. And then through her, I actually met my current teacher, whose name is Mindy Pack, and she's absolutely incredible. I'm so honored that I get to work with her. She often teaches people like Justin Timberlake. She's worked with Charlie Puth and Shawn Mendes as well. And I feel like she's taken my voice to places I never thought it would go. So in answer to your question, that was a roundabout way to answer it. But I don't ever think it hindered me. I think it definitely has helped me, because one thing I think people who aren't classically trained struggle with is longevity of the voice, because they don't have the technique to keep it healthy. Now, that's not to say people care, because people love the way that they sound and it doesn't matter. But I think the training that I have will help me sing a lot longer than somebody who doesn't necessarily have that training. And I'm so grateful to that training. It's the way that God led me, you know?
Right. So what are some good vocal techniques for those that are maybe starting out?
You want me to go voice teacher on you guys? So.
Yes, yes. Come on,
Oh,
because I
Lord.
want to bring it to the pop world and see how people can, bring that into their own life.
Yeah, no, totally. So, well, there's a couple things you can do. Whenever I start with a new student, first thing I always ask them is who their favorite singer is. And if they can't pick one, because usually it's hard, I say, okay, top three. So, because you can't really decide what you want to sound like if you don't know what kind of sound
Right.
you like. You know what I mean? So, that's one of the things I do. And then there's a lot we could work on. Breath control is probably the biggest thing that you can do to help yourself. It's like the engine of the car, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So if the car is your body, the engine is the most important part, right? So there's a good exercise you can do that I teach my students, and it's kind of fun, where you breathe in for a count of 4, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then you hiss out on an S for a count of 4. And you try to get all of your air out by the time you get to 4. Obviously, that's very hard, but this is how you're learning how to control it. And then you do
Right.
the same thing. You hiss out on 8, and then the next time you do 16. And I say, if you can go to 32, do it as long as you can. And then the second level is you only get 1 count to breathe in. Because if you think of
Okay.
a lot of times in songs, you get less than half a second to breathe for like 18 beats or whatever. So that's the second level, and you do it all the same. That's probably a very good place to start if you're just starting out, because if you can get that breath control, which is the most important thing, the other stuff will kind of just fall into place.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about like diction and things like that? It's a little bit different in the pop world. You don't
Yeah.
enunciate nearly as much,
Exactly. You're not going to be singing Shawn Mendes like, I can't write one song. You're not going to do that. I mean, you might, but I don't know how good it would be. So, yeah, that is something that I will say, it's interesting you brought that up, because that is something that I have quote unquote struggled with, because that diction is so ingrained into me, is like being more relaxed, because I don't talk like that. I don't talk like with super duper diction, and that's the thing about pop music, is it's supposed to sound like all songwriting, it's supposed to sound like you're having a conversation.
Right.
Normally you wouldn't talk with the most proper diction, So, I mean, I wouldn't anyway. I'm from Pittsburgh, and we got the Pittsburghese accent. Uh, Ian's gonna go downtown and see them there Stillers and that. So, but yeah, so that's one thing I struggled with, is like having to pull back my diction and not feel so proper about it, but also finding the balance, because I want people to be able to understand what I'm saying without having to see the lyrics in front of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
I also
Right.
don't want them on the other end to feel like I sound like I'm an uppity, rich English person. Not that all people who are English and have a good diction are uppity and rich. I did not mean it like that.
Backpedaling. Uh-oh.
Right.
So do you feel like it has hindered more or helped you more with your craft with singing?
Definitely think it's helped me more.
Yeah.
A lot. It's when I've had trouble singing, I like to sing high, very high. I like to. But when I've had trouble doing that with pop, I go back to my classical technique and I say, okay, what would I do if this was opera? Because oftentimes, because I'm trained much more in opera than I am in pop, it's easier for me to do a high note in opera versus pop. So like, okay, what would I do? Okay, now how can I make that sound less like Les Mis, like you were saying?
Right. Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I definitely think it has helped me so much. Another thing that's great about it is the music theory that I learned in school.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
very helpful when it comes to songwriting, and just playing instruments in general. I've found it to be very useful, and it's such a blessing that I was able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really helps when you're in the songwriting process and you're working with somebody who's maybe good with melody and you're like, oh, I liked that. What chord did you start on? And he's like, I started on the 1, then I went to the 4. And if you don't understand that, it's like,
Yeah.
it's like I'm not following that. So music theory chops are kind of a definite when you're
Yeah.
songwriting. Otherwise, it's just kind of it's just going to kind of be like I don't know what I'm doing. Speaking of songwriting, tell me about when you've been in a room with a pro writer.
Mm. So when I first was in the room with a pro writer, this is actually a very interesting question because my first co-write ever, I used to, like the EP I was talking to you about was all me. I solo wrote it and I solo produced it in that I picked out the instruments and stuff, but I actually had somebody who knew what they were doing to put them together.
Right.
But my first co-write ever, which is when you work with other people, usually
Right.
it's 3 people in one room, was a pro write, believe it or not, at one of Cherie's company's Global Songwriters Connections focus
Okay.
retreats.
Yeah.
The first co-write I ever did was a song called Yo-Yo, and I wrote it with Abram Topel, who's another GSC member, and Lo Lind. She was going by Lo Miller back then, but Lo Lind is her name now. And it blew my mind in a couple different ways. So first off, it was really, really cool. Well, this is more about co-writing, but I'll talk about the pro writer. It was really, really cool to have your ideas get that immediate feedback, which is it's like gratifying. And sometimes they knock you down. They're like, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Which is also okay because when you're writing alone, you have to make the decisions on your own. But when you're co-writing, you have 3 different mindsets working on the same song, and therefore it'll probably be more widely accessible, which is really cool. I was super nervous in my first co-write with a pro writer.
It's intimidating.
It is intimidating because she has, I mean, Lo's absolutely incredible if you're familiar with her work.
Yeah.
She's signed to Prescription Music. By the way, pro writer, I don't know if everybody knows, a pro writer is somebody who's either signed to a publishing company or they have like a really good track record.
Yes, that's very
She's
helpful.
signed to Prescription Music with Dr. Luke, who is the man who Katy Perry.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And she's just recently moved out to Los Angeles, but she's had hundreds of film and TV placements. She's just phenomenal, and she's the sweetest person you could ever meet. So, like Cherie says, she's like a fairy. She's so kind and so sweet. So she made me feel very much at ease, but it's nervous because you want to impress them, but also you want to learn from them. So I was very nervous the first time I wrote with a pro writer, but I also had a lot of fun because the first time was with Lo's a pop writer, which is really cool. So I've been doing it for a while now. I'm on this mentorship actually with Cherie, and it's called her GPS program, where she puts me with 2 pro coach writes a month, and then I meet with like an industry pro, like a publisher or somebody who can mentor me on some other aspect of the business. But I've been doing it for a while now, and it's much less nerve-wracking than it was back then, because I've learned through Cherie that it's much more about connecting with the person than it is about like impressing them or doing your best. And sometimes we don't even finish our songs, and you know what, at the end of the day, that's okay, as long as I made that connection, which I value kind of more than finishing the song. I could finish the song on my own,
Right.
It won't be as good because the pro's not in the room, but whenever, I will say though, whenever I work with a new pro, which happens every once in a while, I still get that little twinge of nervousness, a little bit. And that's just my self-esteem.
Right. So something that Cherie has taught me, for one thing, is they are your friends.
Absolutely.
So that kind of helps not be so nervous and intimidated. I remember when I was in the room with Brian White, he's the one who produced my upcoming album. I was nervous. I was very nervous because I'm like, oh gosh, what if he doesn't like my ideas? What if he's just, and I kept saying to myself what Cherie told me, he's your friend. He's there for you. He's in the same room with you. You're creating together,
I'm right there with you. And I have actually been in coach writes with pros where I felt them be a little nervous too, which made me feel good.
Really? Ooh, tell me about that.
So we're essentially hiring them for their expertise, right?
Right.
So pay for it. But they want to do good for us. They want to impress us. They don't want us walking away feeling like we wasted money on it because it's expensive, as it should, because they deserve it. But they want to do well for us too. And something that Cherie has told me that has helped me a lot is they used to be exactly where we are right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they understand what it feels like, and they're just people.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, they're God or an angel coming down, they're people with faults and things too. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So what would you say to somebody who's maybe never been in a co-writing session with a pro writer and they're maybe going in for their first time? What would be some tips and tools to help them get ready for that?
That's a good question. Thankfully, I had Cherie before my first one, or I would have no idea. Because, like I said, not only was it my first pro write, it was also my first time co-writing with anyone.
Oh, that makes a difference. Yeah.
So it's like, even
yeah, I don't know what I'm doing.
Exactly. One of the biggest things that helped is you just have to come prepared. Do your homework is a big thing. You have to kind of stalk them on, Instagram a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
And that's not to be creepy. That's just to walk in and be like, for example, let's say I was writing with Lo, and she just recently had a placement in a Tony Hawk game, I think. So I would walk in and be like, Lo, I saw you got that placement. Congratulations. Right off the bat, you are making them feel good. And that's what Cherie always says is people remember how you made them feel first.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing they remember. So you get that connection going. So that's part of doing your homework, like finding out what's going on in their world. If it might not be something good. Maybe they lost a loved one recently or something like that, So talk about those things. I mean, in my opinion, the first half hour or so of a co-write, especially if it's with somebody you haven't worked with before, should probably just be talking about
just getting to know them. Yeah.
Getting to know each other, getting comfortable with each other. And sometimes you get a great idea from that.
Yeah,
Another thing that I think would be very helpful, it was very helpful to me, is to come in with a list of ideas or titles that you're ready to pitch to, if we're talking about pro writing specifically, pitch to the pro writer to write. You can come in with, Cherie always says, come in with a beat, come in with a chord progression. But the strongest thing you can come in is probably a list of titles and ideas you had to go with that title. And I just would read them. I just read them off. And you can always tell, I keep thinking about Lo because we work together a lot.
Yeah.
But you can always tell with Lo when she has an idea that she likes because she listens and she stops. She turns her head. She's like, sorry, I'm just thinking. She'll think for a couple minutes. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's the one, So, but no, those are probably the two biggest things, is do your homework on them and come prepared with titles and ideas.
Yes. I've heard from other of my GSC peeps that you need to come with food.
Yeah.
And snacks.
That's a great idea. I never thought about that before.
That's something. Yeah, I interviewed Alexa Valentino, and she was like, food.
That's a great idea. Wow.
That was her first one. Yeah.
I love Alexa. She's the greatest.
Yes, she's awesome. Yes. So, who are some of your favorite singers and songwriters, and why?
Okay, so I'm going to do two different things because singers are different from songwriters.
Right, they're totally different. Yeah.
My all-time favorite singer, I mean, it's probably going to change throughout my life, but currently my all-time favorite singer is Steve Perry from Journey.
Okay, yeah.
And there's just nobody I've ever heard who makes me feel the way his voice does when I hear him sing. It's just he sings so incredibly high. That's what I aspire to be able to do. And it just sounds so effortless. And I love that. I love that so much. Freddie Mercury is another big one for me. I think Steve Perry is definitely my favorite, but Steve Perry, Freddie Mercury, who else? I like Sam Cooke a lot. His voice is just incredible and so soulful. My favorite current singer and female singer is Tori Kelly.
I knew you were going to say her. Yes, I love her.
She broke my heart when she got married and didn't tell me about it. But,
oh, how rude.
Well, it's not like she really knows me or
No, I know.
Actually, that's not entirely true. We've actually met twice, which is really neat, believe it or not. One time I did a meet and greet at one of her concerts, which was great. It was very expensive.
Yeah.
The second time was completely by accident at the listening room in Nashville.
Yeah, you played there too, right?
Well, oh no, so actually I played at the Steamworks Creative Listening Room in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I saw that on my bio. I was like, wait, that probably looks like I mean the listening room in Nashville. I wish that's what that meant. But no, it's another great listening room in Pittsburgh.
But you played at the Bluebird too in Nashville, right?
Yeah, the Bluebird was really cool. I think I've done it twice, the open mic night at the Bluebird on Mondays. And I don't know if you've ever done it before, but you have to call, there's like they have like an hour where you can call in and reserve a spot. And because everybody like everywhere is calling,
right,
you have to call like 80 to 100 times. My parents both did it, and they were just like call, and they got me on. My mom was laughing the one time though because she called and then somebody answered and they went blup and she hung up because she was so used to hanging up and redialing.
It took her by surprise.
Oh, she was like, "Oh no, he's going to kill me." It worked out. We ended up getting on anyway. So that was very cool because if you know the history of the Bluebird, I mean, you know, people like Taylor Swift got their start there, Garth Brooks. There's just so much history, and you can feel the energy in that room. There's like a very good energy in there, and it just feels I'm gonna soak it all up.
Yes. Yes. So what are some performing tips and tools that you use? Like say you're about to go on stage at the infamous Bluebird or somewhere else that's, you know, just really well known. Do you get nervous?
You know, yes, absolutely I do. And I don't think that's ever going to fully go away. That's a good thing, I think, because one, it means you're humble, it keeps you humble.
Right.
And two, that nervous energy, any kind of energy, I think, for performing is good energy because you can turn it into energy that you use for your performance, right?
Ooh, yeah.
Nervous energy, I think, is very, very good in that respect. But if you're nervous before you go on stage, you know, Cherie gives me this tip, and it actually does work. She says, if you confess your fear, you will disperse your fear.
Ooh, I like that.
So you go on and you'd be like, what's up, everybody? I'm so glad to be here. I just want to say I'm a little bit nervous.
Okay.
But a great time tonight. You know, it kind of like, it dissipates if you just like put it out there.
Right. Ooh, I like that.
So that's a very helpful technique. I also like to crack jokes because that's just who I am. And for me, maybe not for everyone, but for me, when the audience laughs, it's like a breath of fresh air, and it's like, okay, we're over it now. Everything's fine.
Yeah. I wish I were good at telling jokes like my husband. I have this one joke that I know, and every time, huh?
Tell me it.
Oh, no, it's terrible. It's really terrible. The delivery is actually funnier than the actual joke.
I love terrible jokes. I'm like the corny joke master.
Yeah. So every time I get ready to tell that joke, my husband's like, oh no. Like he literally, oh no, because he's heard it so many times. And it's just because I'm very quick-witted, you know, like in the moment, but having to memorize something and, you know, my brain doesn't work like that. So,
Yep.
but those are some good tips to tell some jokes and say, hey guys, I'm a little bit nervous. That's awesome.
There's also, like, I'm actually working with Cherie right now because I have a show coming up at the beginning of December, a Christmas show, holiday show. There's another thing that I had never done before working with Cherie that you can do that I find very helpful. Still haven't done it to the extent that I would like to, but is create a script, right?
Ooh.
So it's like you're following something to a T, like even your jokes are scripted, your like everything, and then you have, because inevitably in live music things go wrong, you also have like a list of things you're ready to say if something does go wrong, you know. So that could be very helpful. Famous people do this. I've seen in the scope of 2 years, I saw Ed Sheeran twice. It was the same show. I mean, he did change it a little bit because he was doing that Divide tour for like 3 years. He did like stadium tour and then an arena tour and then like whatever. But it was pretty much the same show, like the same jokes, the same. I mean, I still thought it was awesome. Don't get me wrong, but that was really cool for me to see that the pros even do scripting in their shows. So, and he's a big songwriting influence of mine, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Ed Sheeran, love him so much.
Yeah, but you don't want to be too scripted. Like you want to still be a little bit, authentic, because
Sure.
could come across as a little rigid, but those are definitely some good tools,
Right.
for starting out.
The delivery, like you were saying.
Yeah, definitely the delivery. I mean, if you come out and your thing is scripted and it's just all monotone, like you're not going to have the same response.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me a little bit. Usually when I do my interviews, I often find, and the show is called Celebration Conversations, I often find that my artists, music, myself included, music has helped them to cope with things in life, whether it be anxiety or just life in general. Tell me about how it has influenced and helped you cope.
Mm-hmm. So I do get anxiety. I worry a lot and stress a lot.
Yes.
It's very hard for me to turn off stress at times because of this wonderful mentorship. Not because of this wonderful mentorship, but like one of the reasons. This mentorship is so great, but there's like so much to do with it. And it takes a lot of time, and it's just like, sometimes I'll lay awake in bed at night being like, okay, I have to do that. Shoot, I forgot to do that. Okay, now I got to do that tomorrow, which means I got to move that other thing to Monday, and then
right.
I'm like, shut up to my brain, So that I oftentimes find very difficult to turn off. I find that the best thing to do in those moments is to just be at peace and let God take control of it, because for me that's the best thing that I can do. But that being said, something lately that has been very stress relieving for me is playing the keyboard.
Okay.
A lot of times when I am playing the keyboard, it's to practice for a show or to teach. I use it for, actually have it right here, to teach for private lessons or something like that. And it's something, not that teaching songwriting with the keyboard and whatnot isn't great, but it's not just for fun, you know what I mean? It's like part of my career.
Right. It's work.
Exactly. It's work.
Yeah.
It's a great kind of work, but don't get me wrong. But
yes,
I like sit down to play, just to have fun. Something
Just
I've been
to
doing
be.
is I play jazz cymbals, so I don't read sheet music. So something I've been doing is trying to read. I mean, I do read it, but it takes a while. Trying to learn how to do that quicker, and that has been very therapeutic for me lately. If I can find any time to do it,
Right.
That has been very helpful. Songwriting has been a form of therapy for me, very much so. Just connecting with people like you and other people through who I met all through Cherie. And just making that connection with people. I love connecting with people. That is something that if I don't have, I definitely get very down. Like, if I'm alone a lot, or like I'm not meeting with other people very often, it's very saddening to me. I think it's because I like to have that in-person connection because it reminds me of my connection with God. But that's very therapeutic, and the song that we come up with is like the baby, which is like, here you get to produce it to the world and be like, I hope you like it. Which is kind of like I guess what parents feel too with their real children.
Oh yes, let me that's a whole other conversation for another day. But yeah, completely completely can relate with that.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
yeah.
Only you don't, I mean, there's only so much you can control with parenting. Like you can't control their DNA. You can't
That's true.
control,
Yeah,
exactly how it's made. With songwriting, you have more control. It's like,
yeah.
which way it's gonna go,
Right.
and so and you can just kind of teach it to be and you can train it to, which you can to a certain degree with kids, but at the end of the day, they're still people, and
Yeah.
they're gonna do what they want to do. So,
Oh,
but yeah,
exactly.
it's a very good comparison. Yeah, yeah. So tell me about what you've got coming up next around the first of the year.
Yeah, so I'm currently working. I've said her name a lot today. You should all check out her website,
Yes.
globalsongwriters.com. I think it is globalsongwriters.com. Sheree Spoltore, she's kind of acting as like my manager right now,
Okay.
and helping get me ready for the real world of music, whatever that
Right.
And so I've been working with her and her husband Lou, who's a fantastic guy as well. And they're helping me decide on some new singles that I'm going to release. The last release I did was that one I did in 2018. And that EP, it's called, if you want to check it out, it's called Rags to Riches with 2 G's, R-A-G.
Ooh, that's cool.
That's because my last name is Reggie. And it has
Yeah.
You can check that out if you'd like. I will say I'm a lot more excited about the new stuff I've been working on than this EP. That EP was very great. Well, I'm not going to say it like I was so great back then. That's not what I mean. But that EP was very good for where I am.
Where you were at the
where
time.
I was when I released it. But the stuff I'm working on right now, I'm so much more excited about. So hopefully in the new year, definitely in the new year, I'm not sure when yet, I will be releasing a couple new singles that I'm so excited about because it's kind of like we're rebranding me as an artist. It's like a release almost. First official release, I guess I should say.
Like a rebirth almost.
Yeah, exactly. After I've learned, and met with so many cool people, wrote with so many cool people, I've learned so much, and had all these different experiences traveling back and forth to Nashville, and that I think it shows in the new songs I'm working on.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, we'll have to go check that out. Are you on Instagram?
I am, yes. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. Where else? Actually have my sign up here. Apple Music, Spotify.
TikTok.
TikTok, yes, and TikTok.
Okay.
And YouTube. I don't have TikTok up there. I have to add that. Sorry, I have a banner up there that I use.
Oh, that's awesome.
But you can find me on all those places, and my handle is @AJRags. One word, AJRAGGS. I think it's on all of those places. So check me out. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I've so enjoyed our conversation, and I can't wait for our co-writing session. That'll be so awesome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. This was an honor. Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome.
Hey there, don't go just yet. Be sure to hit subscribe to be notified of new episodes of Celebration Conversations. Show us some support by liking and sharing to inspire followers and friends alike. Follow me at @SYoungMusic on Instagram. I would love if you left a comment or a review about the episode. Visit AJ's website at www.ajragsmusic.com. Check out his music on Spotify and iTunes. Here is his new release, My Kind of People.
Every time I turn on my TV, losing my faith in humanity. It's full of angry, bad news faces, but there's a new story breaking. Don't even have to leave my neighborhood. I'm uncovering everyday acts of good that you won't see in any headline. The more I look, the more I find kind people, my kind of people. If your vibe is your tribe, then I wanna be surrounded by a bunch of beauty.